never thought my life would change so drastically when I stepped into the tall glass building in downtown Manhattan. I was just Evelyn, a small town girl with big dreams, still holding on to the simplicity I grew up with. My parents always said I was too soft for the real world, too polite, too trusting, too innocent. Maybe they were right. The office was massive, buzzing with people in heels and suits, all moving with a confidence I hadn't yet earned. My heart raced as I clutched my small beige purse, trying not to let my nerves show. It was my first day, and I already felt like a fish out of water. "New girl," a voice asked. I turned to see a sharply dressed woman with perfectly lined eyes and a smirk that seemed to read me inside and out. I nodded quickly, managing a shy smile. She didn't introduce herself, just gave me a look, one I couldn't quite place. Amusement, interest, I wasn't sure, but there was something magnetic about her. Later, I'd learned that she was Liza Carter, our department head, my boss, and just like that, I was under her gaze. From day one, Liza carried herself like she owned every room she walked into. Tall, poised, with a sleek bob that never seemed out of place, and a voice that made people listen. She wasn't just a boss, she was a force. She didn't smile often, but when she did, it felt deliberate, like she was choosing who got to see that side of her. During my orientation, I could feel her eyes on me from across the room. At first, I thought I was doing something wrong. Maybe I looked out of place, or maybe I spilled something on my blouse. But every time I looked up, she was still watching, not in a stern way, but curious, studying. When I was introduced formally as the new executive assistant, she shook my hand with a firm grip and said, "Evelyn, right? Pretty name." Her tone was neutral, but the way her fingers lingered just a second longer than necessary sent a strange flutter through my chest. "Thank you, ma'am," I replied quietly, not meeting her eyes for too long. "You'll be working close with me," she added, her smile barely touching her lips. "I like to know who's in my space." I nodded again, flustered, and unsure what to say. That moment stuck with me all day. There was something about her, confident, calm, and undeniably powerful. I was drawn to it, even if I didn't understand why. And deep down, I could sense that she had already taken a particular interest in me, an interest I wasn't sure I was ready for. But something told me Lisa didn't care if I was ready or not.
The days passed, and I tried my best to focus on the mountain of new tasks that came with my role. Scheduling meetings, organizing reports, and navigating the strange, fast-paced rhythm of corporate life. But no matter how focused I tried to be, I couldn't ignore the feeling that I was being watched. Lisa had a way of making her presence known without saying a word. Every time she walked into a room, conversation shifted, eyes followed, and the atmosphere thickened. And more often than not, her gaze found me. It started subtly. A passing glance that lingered a second too long. A smile that only curved on one side of her lips. Then came the compliments. "You're very detail-oriented," she said once, leaning against my desk while I typed away. "It's refreshing." "Thank you," I murmured, my cheeks warming. Her eyes dropped to my neckline, for just a breath before returning to mine. "Also, you look good in white. It suits your softness." I didn't know how to respond. Was it a genuine compliment? Or something else? I nodded politely and turned back to my screen, but my hands trembled on the keyboard. That night, I stared at my ceiling in bed, replaying that moment over and over again. There was something in her tone, something that made me feel both flattered and uncomfortable. Over the next few weeks, it only intensified. She'd brush my hand when handing over a file. She'd stand just a little too close during meetings, And whenever we crossed paths in the hallway, she didn't just look, she watched, like I was something worth studying. "Hey, Evelyn," came a voice one lunch break. It was Mia, a senior assistant from another department. She had short curly hair, a relaxed air about her, and we'd chatted a few times before. "Hey," I smiled, grateful for someone familiar. Mia sat beside me, picking at her salad. "So, how's it going with the Ice Queen?" "Who?" "Liza," she grinned. "That woman gives me chills, but I've noticed she's been around you a lot." I looked down at my lunch, stirring it absent-mindedly. "She's just attentive, I guess." Mia raised a brow. "Attentive? Or interested?" My fork paused in midair. "What do you mean?" She leaned in, lowering her voice. "It's not really talked about, but people know. Lisa's into women, like exclusively," I blinked. "Oh, just be careful," Mia added with a shrug. "She likes a challenge. And you," her eyes flicked over me, "you've got that sweet, innocent vibe she'd love to crack." I laughed nervously. "I'm not even sure she sees me that way." Mia gave a knowing smirk. "Trust me, Evelyn, she sees you exactly that way." Later that afternoon, I was gathering papers from the copier when I received a message on my work phone. "Liza, join me in my office. Bring the Baxter files." I walked in cautiously, clutching the folder to my chest. Liza was seated. Behind her desk, one leg crossed over the other, a glass of something amber in her hand. Her jacket hung over the back of her chair, and her blouse, silky and navy, was unbuttoned just low enough to be noticeable. "You wanted to see me?" Her eyes traveled over me slowly, before she gestured to the seat across from her. "Sit." I did, knees together, hands in my lap. "You've been doing good work," she said, her voice lower than usual. "Very efficient." "Thank you." She sipped from her glass, then leaned forward slightly. "But you don't talk much." I blinked. I try to stay professional." She murmured. "That's admirable." A silence stretched between us, thick and electric. Then she said it, softly but clearly. "You're very easy to look at, Evelyn. Has anyone ever told you that?" My breath caught. I don't know," she smiled slowly. "Well, I'm telling you now." I stood a little too quickly. "I should get back to my desk." Her eyes held mine for a second longer before she nodded, her smile never faltering. "Of course." As I walked out of her office, heart racing, I couldn't help but feel like I'd just stepped into something deeper than I understood. And whatever it wasn't going to stop here. I spent the next few days trying to act like everything was normal, smiling politely, doing my tasks, keeping my eyes down. But inside, nothing felt normal anymore. Every glance from Liza, every slight touch or offhand compliment set off a chain reaction in my chest that I didn't know how to stop. Was she just being friendly? A confident woman who liked to flirt in harmless ways? Or was there something else behind her words? Something deliberate? I didn't have the answers, and it bothered me more than I wanted to admit. One evening, just as I was about to log off and head home, my phone buzzed. "Liza, come to my office. Quick thing to go over before tomorrow." I hesitated, staring at the message. It was almost 7:30 p.m. The office was quiet now, most of the team long gone. My instincts told me to go home, but my legs moved anyway. Her office door was cracked open, a warm, golden light spilling out into the hallway. I knocked lightly. "Come in," she said. She was standing by the window, the city lights behind her making her look like something out of a dream. She'd taken off her heels, and her long black trousers made her look taller, more relaxed somehow. I I didn't mean to keep you, she said, glancing at me with a small smile. I just thought, maybe we could talk. I frowned slightly. Talk about? Nothing work-related. She walked over to the small bar cabinet near her desk and held up a bottle. Wine? I hesitated, then nodded. Just a little. She poured 2 glasses and handed me one, her fingers grazing. Mine. That single touch sent a tingle up my arm. I took a cautious sip, letting the silence settle between us before she finally spoke again. Do you like it here? She asked. The job? Everything. I swallowed. It's a lot, but I'm learning. You're doing more than that, she said. You're adapting. And that's not easy for someone like you. I tilted my head. Someone like me? She looked at me for a moment, then sat on the edge of her desk, swirling her wine. Innocent, she said softly, unhardened, unaware of how much power you hold just by being exactly who you are. I didn't know what to say. My cheeks warmed instantly. You think that's a weakness? She continued. But it's not. It's magnetic. My throat felt tight. I don't understand. She took a sip of wine, eyes locked on mine. You don't even know how desirable you are, do you? My heart started pounding. I could barely meet her gaze. I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable, she added gently. I like being honest. I've spent too many years hiding things about myself. There was a pause. I could feel the weight of her words pressing on me. I'm attracted to women, she said simply. Always have been. I don't see the point in pretending otherwise. The confession, while not entirely surprising, still made my breath catch. She said it so easily. No shame, no hesitation. I know that might be new for you, she added, her voice softer now. But I wanted you to hear it from me. I didn't want to keep making you guess. I nodded slowly, my thoughts spinning. Thank you for telling me. Her smile was calm, but her eyes were intense. There's something very rare about you, Evelyn. I saw it the first day you walked in. You don't have to do anything special to be beautiful. You already are. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My heart was beating too fast, my skin too warm. I wasn't sure what I was feeling. Flattered, confused, curious, maybe even a little excited. All I knew was I couldn't stop thinking about her, and it terrified me. The next few days passed in a blur. I kept playing that conversation over in my mind. Her voice, her words, the way she looked at me like she could see every part I didn't even understand about myself yet. I tried to keep my distance, but every time I caught sight of her across the office, my stomach flipped in ways I didn't know how to control. One evening, I was staying late to finish a report. The office was mostly empty again, lights dimmed, city traffic humming softly outside, the windows. I was printing the final pages when I heard her heels approach, slow, deliberate. You're still here, she said, her tone casual. I turned to find her leaning on the side of the cubicle, arms crossed, wearing that same midnight-colored blouse that always seemed to cling to her in all the right ways. Just finishing the quarterly report, I said, trying to sound breezy. Always the good girl, she teased, walking closer. I smiled awkwardly, turning back to the printer. The pages slid out slowly, my fingers catching the edge of the warm paper. One fluttered to the floor. She bent at the same time I did, and for a moment, our hands met. It was a light touch, skin against skin. But it hit me like a jolt. I froze. She didn't move away. Her hand remained on mine for a second longer than necessary. Her thumb grazed over my knuckles. Tender. Deliberate. I looked up at her, startled. She was already watching, Me. Neither of us said anything. The air between us shifted, thick and quiet. My mouth parted slightly, but no sound came out. Then, slowly, carefully, she reached up and brushed a strand of hair away from my cheek. Her fingers barely touched my skin, but it was enough to make my breath hitch. "You're trembling," she said, voice low. I took a step back. "I should go." She didn't stop me, just nodded once, understanding in her eyes, something unreadable flickering underneath. I gathered the pages, avoiding her gaze, and practically fled the office. The cool night air hit me hard as I stepped outside, but it didn't calm the fire inside my chest. My hands were still shaking. My heart pounded like it was trying to escape my rib cage. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, felt her fingers on mine, her touch on my cheek. It had been so soft, gentle, like she was afraid I might break. And maybe I would have, if she'd gone any further. But what scared me more was how I hadn't wanted her to stop. I wrapped the blankets tighter around me, trying to quiet the racing thoughts. What was I doing? What was this? It wasn't like I had ever imagined being with a woman. I hadn't even considered it. Not really. Not until Liza. And yet, there was a part of me, deep down, that had wanted that moment, had waited for it. I touched my own cheek where her fingers had been, still feeling the heat. Something had awakened in me. Something I didn't fully understand. But I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't over. I avoided her. For 3 days straight, I came in early and left as soon as I could. I kept to myself, volunteered for tasks in other departments, and made excuses to not attend meetings if I knew she'd be there. I told myself I needed space, time, to think, to breathe, to forget the way her hand had felt on mine, the warmth of her touch against my cheek. But it didn't work. Every time I saw her from a distance, gliding through the hallway, talking to clients, giving directions with that cool, calm confidence, I felt the sting of guilt. And something else, something tighter, heavier. Desire? Longing? No. I shook the thought out of my head. That wasn't me. I wasn't like that. But if I wasn't, then why did I lie awake each night thinking about her? Why did I replay every word, every glance, every brush of skin? I hated that I couldn't make sense of it. I started skipping lunch in the break room and eating at my desk, headphones in, pretending to be deep in spreadsheets. The office buzzed on as usual, but I felt like I was moving through water, slow, distant, uncertain of every step. Then, one evening, as I was packing up, my phone buzzed. A message. From her. Liza. I miss your smile. My breath caught, just 5 words, simple and sweet. Not demanding, not dramatic. Just her. I stared at the screen, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. I didn't reply. Instead, I sat there, my heart heavy, torn in too many directions at once. Was I being unfair to her? Was I being unfair to myself? I'd always thought of myself as straight, or maybe I'd just never questioned it. I had crushes on boys in school, imagined the usual kind of life, husband, kids, the safe path. But none of it ever made my heart race the way she did. None of it ever shook me to my core. What if I wasn't who I thought I was? What if everything I believed about myself, my innocence, my simplicity, was only a story I'd clung to out of fear? The thought made my stomach churn. That night, I lay curled under my blankets, the soft glow of the message still lighting up my phone screen. I didn't cry, but I wanted to. I didn't understand why I felt like I was losing something, or maybe becoming something else. I missed her too. I missed the way she saw me. Not as weak or naive, but as something beautiful, desired, and that terrified me more than anything. It was a Thursday. Nothing especially terrible had happened, just a string of small things that piled up like bricks on my chest. A critical email from a manager, a missed deadline on a minor report, a coffee spill on my blouse, and a sharp comment from a client that left me feeling useless. But the worst part wasn't any of that. The worst part was feeling like I had no one to talk to. Not really. By the time the office emptied out and the lights dimmed, I sat frozen at my desk, staring at the screen, my eyes burning. I didn't even realize I was crying until a single tear slid down my cheek and landed on the back of my hand. I wiped it away quickly, but more followed. I couldn't stop them. I don't know what possessed me, but my feet moved on their own, like some quiet part of me knew exactly where I needed to be. I walked down the hall, each step heavier than the last, and paused in front of her office door. It was slightly ajar, light spilling from within. I knocked once, barely. "Come in," Lisa said softly. I pushed the door open and stood there for a moment, uncertain, trembling. She looked up from her tablet, and the moment her eyes met mine, I felt everything crumble inside me. Without a word, I stepped in and shut the door behind me. She rose to her feet instantly. "Evelyn." That's all it took. The sound of her voice cracked something open. "I'm sorry," I whispered, tears breaking free. I can't pretend I'm okay anymore." She crossed the room quickly and pulled me into her arms, and I didn't resist. I melted against her, burying my face in her shoulder, the scent of her perfume wrapping around me like something familiar and safe. "It's all right," she murmured. "You don't have to be okay all the time." I didn't know how long she held me. I only knew that the warmth of her body against mine soothed something deep, something I didn't even know had been hurting. When I finally looked up, her hand was on my face, brushing away my tears, her thumb lingering just beneath my eye. Her touch was gentle, but her eyes were stormy, intense. "I've been trying to stay away," I whispered. "I know," she said, "and I didn't push, but I missed you." "I don't know what this is," I said, voice shaking. "I don't even know who I am anymore." "You don't have to figure it out tonight." I swallowed, staring at her lips without meaning to. Then, slowly, like the world had shrunk to just the space between us, she leaned in. I didn't stop her. Our lips touched, soft at first, uncertain, questioning. But then I kissed her back, fully, like I'd been holding it in for too long. Her arms tightened around me, and mine wrapped around her neck, pulling her closer. It wasn't wild or rushed. It was warm, fierce, real. When we finally broke apart, I was breathless, my heart pounding like a drum. "I'm scared," I admitted, "but I don't want to run anymore." She pressed her forehead to mine and smiled faintly. "I won't hurt you, Evelyn, but I can't promise I won't make you feel things you've never felt." And somehow, that didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like a promise. Everything changed after that kiss. We didn't talk about it the next day, or the day after. But something shifted between us, something silent and magnetic. It pulled us together with every glance, every moment alone, every chance touch that lingered just a heartbeat longer than it should. What began as hesitation turned into something else entirely. Late at night, when the office was quiet and the city lights blinked through the tall windows, I would find myself in her office again. Sometimes under the pretense of reviewing reports or needing guidance, but neither of us believed the excuse. We just wanted to be close. Lisa would shut the door, pour us each a glass of wine, and sit beside me instead of across the desk. Sometimes we talked about work, about life, about things I never told anyone. Other times, we didn't talk at all. Her touch was always gentle, fingers brushing mine, her palm cradling my face as she leaned in. Our kisses were slow, tasting, exploring, like we had all the time in the world. But under the softness, there was something electric, something I couldn't get enough of. She kissed me like she'd been waiting her whole life to. In those secret hours, I felt like someone else, someone braver. Her hands would trace the curve of my waist. Her lips would find the sensitive spot, just beneath my jaw, and I would forget everything except the feeling of being wanted, desired, seen. We were careful, always. No one in the office suspected anything. During the day, she remained the composed, elegant boss, and I stayed the quiet assistant. But when our eyes met across a room, I could feel the heat under my skin. And I knew she felt it too. I was still scared, still unsure of where this road was leading me, but I couldn't stop myself. I didn't want to. Every time she touched me, a part of me lit up that I didn't know existed. One night, as I lay curled against her on the leather couch in her office, I whispered into the darkness, "I feel like I'm losing my innocence." She tilted her head, looking at me with those steady, knowing eyes. Her hand slid over my fingers and held them tight. "No," she said softly. "You're finding your truth." Maybe she was right. I wasn't sure what love looked like. Not this kind, not this wild, hidden kind of love that grew in shadows and silence. But I knew I was beginning to feel it. And no matter how dangerous it felt, I didn't want to let it go. I couldn't take it anymore. The thrill, the secrecy, the stolen moments that left my heart racing. It was all beginning to blur. As much as I craved her touch, I needed more than her hands. I needed to know what I truly meant to her. One evening, after yet another late night tangled in her embrace, I stood up from the couch, pulling my blouse back over my shoulders, my heart pounding with words I hadn't dared to speak before. "Liza," I said, and my voice trembled. "What am I to you? Just a phase? An innocent girl to seduce and then forget?" She froze mid-motion, her smile fading. I could see the shift in her eyes, hurt, but also something deeper. She didn't rush to answer. She stood slowly and walked toward me, stopping, just a breath away. "No," she said, her voice low and unguarded. "You're not a phase, Evelyn. I didn't plan this. You weren't some conquest." I looked down, unsure, my fingers tightening at my sides. She reached for my hands and brought them to her chest. Her heartbeat was fast beneath my touch. "When I first saw you, I was drawn to you. Yes, because you were beautiful, innocent. But when I got to know you, your honesty, your softness, the way you see the world, it disarmed me." Her eyes shined, not with seduction, but with truth. "You make me want to be more," she whispered. "Not just your boss, not just your secret, but someone who matters to you." Tears welled up in my eyes before I could stop them. My chest tightened with something fierce and warm and terrifying. Because in that moment I knew. This wasn't lust. It had started as curiosity, bloomed through passion. But now, it was something else. I was in love with her. With the way she looked at me like I was art. With the way she never rushed me, never demanded. With the way she made me feel like my heart was worth holding. "I was so afraid," I whispered. "But I think I've already fallen." She pulled me into her arms, holding me like she'd never let go. Then don't run anymore, she said. Stay. Be mine. And for the first time, I didn't hesitate. I stopped hiding. No more sneaking glances in the hallway or pretending our meetings were just about spreadsheets. I walked beside her now, shoulder to shoulder, fingers brushing, hearts aligned. At first, the office buzzed with whispers. Curious, eyes followed us, but we didn't shrink from them. Liza never let go of my hand. She stood tall, as always. But now I stood with her, not as the innocent assistant, but as the woman who chose her. We didn't make a show of it. We didn't have to. The love between us was quiet, but strong, like a steady flame that refused to be extinguished. One afternoon, as we sat on the rooftop during lunch, sunlight painting her face gold, I looked at her and smiled. I used to think I was innocent, I said softly. She raised an eyebrow, teasing. And now? I leaned in, letting my forehead rest against hers. Now I know. I wasn't innocent. I was just waiting to be awakened. She kissed me gently, as if to say you are. And in that moment, I felt fully awake. For the first time in my life.